There's a specific kind of silence that hurts more than any words ever could. It's not the silence after an argument. It's not the silence of someone being angry with you. It's the silence of someone who just stopped. No fight, no reason, no warning. One morning you wake up and the space they used to fill in your life is just empty. And the worst part, they didn't even think you deserved an explanation. They just disappeared. Like you never mattered enough to say goodbye to. And now you're sitting here, replaying every conversation, every moment, searching for the sign you missed, the clue, the turning point, wondering what you did wrong. But here's the truth nobody tells you. This was never about you. When someone disappears without explanation, it usually has very little to do with you, and everything to do with what's happening inside them. Today, we're going deep into the psychology of people who disappear without explanation. And by the end of this, you'll see this painful pattern in a completely different light. It's not always cruelty. It's not always intentional manipulation. Psychologists call this behavior emotional withdrawal, and it often has deep roots. Some people disappear because intimacy feels dangerous. Attachment theory explains this. If someone grew up with unpredictable caregivers, parents who were loving one moment and distant the next, they learn to protect themselves by withdrawing. Vanishing becomes a coping mechanism, a way to avoid conflict, a way to escape vulnerability. Carl Jung described this as the shadow self, the part of ourselves we hide from others, even from those we care about. Disappearing is a shadow move. It's retreating to protect a part of themselves they can't face in the moment. Let's start with the most common psychological driver, avoidant attachment. Attachment theory shows us that our early relationships shape how we connect as adults. People with avoidant attachment learned early that emotional closeness equals danger. Maybe their needs were dismissed. Maybe vulnerability was punished. Maybe they learned that relying on others only leads to disappointment. So they developed a survival strategy: emotional distance. Here's how it plays out. When a relationship, romantic, platonic, or otherwise, starts demanding more emotional intimacy, their nervous system interprets it as a threat. Not a conscious threat, a primal one. And what do we do when threatened? We run. People with avoidant patterns often describe feeling suffocated or trapped in relationships, even healthy ones. The problem isn't the relationship. It's their internal alarm system misfiring. So when they disappear, they're not rejecting you. They're protecting themselves from the terror of being truly seen. But avoidant attachment isn't the only driver. Sometimes people disappear because of shame. Shame is the intensely painful feeling that we are flawed and unworthy of connection. And when people carry deep shame, they develop armor, defensive strategies to avoid feeling it. One of the most common, disappearing. Think about it. If you believe you're fundamentally flawed, then every relationship becomes a ticking time bomb. Eventually, you think, they'll see the real you, and when they do, they'll leave. So some people beat others to the punch. They leave first. It's a preemptive strike against the rejection they believe is inevitable. When this inferiority complex, a deep-seated belief that one is not enough, is activated in a relationship, the shame becomes so overwhelming that vanishing feels like the only option. They're not running from you. They're running from the unbearable feeling of being known. Sometimes the disappearance isn't strategic at all. It's a shutdown. This is what psychologists call the freeze response, one of the 4 trauma responses alongside fight, flight, and fawn. When someone is deeply overwhelmed by depression, anxiety, grief, or life circumstances, their capacity for connection can completely collapse. It's not that they don't want to respond, it's that they can't. Their nervous system is in survival mode, and maintaining relationships feels like trying to swim while drowning. So they go dark, not because they don't value you, but because they have nothing left to give. There's also what happens during an identity crisis. Throughout life, we go through periods of questioning who we are and what we want. This is completely normal, even necessary. But sometimes people wake up and realize the life they're living, the relationships they're in, the version of themselves they've been performing, it's not real. And instead of having the difficult conversation, instead of slowly transitioning, they eject entirely. They delete social media, they move cities, they cut contact. It's not personal, it's existential. Carl Jung talked about the process of individuation, becoming who you truly are. And sometimes that process requires people to shed old identities, old relationships, old versions of themselves. For some people, disappearing is their way of making that transformation. They're not running from you, they're running toward themselves. And then there are people who disappear because they never learned how to set boundaries with words. Boundaries define us. They define what is me and what is not me. But what happens when someone was never taught that they could have boundaries, that they could say no, that they could ask for space without losing love? They disappear instead. For them, ghosting is the boundary. It's the only way they know how to protect themselves. And here's the painful truth. Many people who ghost actually feel guilty about it. They know it's hurtful. They know it's confusing. But the anxiety of confrontation feels worse than the guilt of vanishing. And while this behavior protects them, it leaves you reeling. You question your worth. You overthink every word you said. You may blame yourself endlessly. The truth is, disappearing is rarely about you. It's about their inner world, their fears, their coping mechanisms, their unfinished emotional development. But understanding this doesn't make it hurt any less. It doesn't erase the anxiety of the unanswered question. It doesn't heal the wound immediately. You have to remember, the person who disappeared, they're not making a statement about your worth. They're making a statement about their capacity. Think about this. Explaining requires emotional presence. It requires honesty, reflection, and courage. For many people who disappear, these skills are underdeveloped, or their emotional capacity is overwhelmed. So what do we do with all of this? First, we stop making it about us. When someone disappears, our minds immediately go to, what did I do? What's wrong with me? Why wasn't I enough? But as we've seen, the psychology of ghosting is almost always about the person who left, not the person who was left. Their disappearance is a reflection of their pain, their fear, their unresolved wounds, not your value. It's tempting to demand answers, to want a neat explanation, but give yourself the chance to grieve without closure. This is what's called ambiguous loss, a loss without resolution, and it's one of the hardest kinds to process. You don't get answers, you don't get a clean ending, but you can still honor what was. You can still let yourself feel the hurt, and you can still move forward without the closure you deserve. Because sometimes, closure isn't something someone gives you, it's something you give yourself. Accepting uncertainty doesn't mean resigning yourself to pain. It means acknowledging that closure may never come, and that's okay. When you catch yourself replaying the past, pause and say, I may not know why, but that doesn't erase my value. Notice the tension in your body when thoughts of why arise. Breathe into it, let it pass. Gradually, you teach your brain that not knowing is safe, that you can exist without all the answers. When someone disappears, it doesn't just leave a silence, it stirs everything. Confusion, hurt, sadness, even that quiet shame that asks, was it something about me? If you push those feelings down, they don't vanish. They settle into your body, into your chest, your stomach, your sleep. Letting yourself feel isn't about fixing anything. It's about letting the truth come up instead of burying it. Name what's there, sit with it, write it out. The anger, the questions, the memories that won't stop looping. Don't make it neat. Don't look for answers. Just let it spill. Or speak it out loud to someone you trust, someone who can hold your words without trying to rush you forward. Breathe slowly. Take a walk. Stretch. Let your body move and notice how, little by little, the tightness starts to loosen. Redirect your mental energy to what's within your control, your response, your boundaries, your growth. This cognitive reframing doesn't erase the hurt, but it prevents self-damage. Remind yourself that your life doesn't go on hold just because someone disappears. Reflect on what this showed you about your needs, your values, and where your boundaries really are. Then gently turn that energy back toward yourself, investing in the projects, friendships, and small rituals that reconnect you to who you are and what gives you a sense of worth. You cannot control whether someone disappears. You cannot make someone explain themselves. You cannot force them to process their own emotional landscape. But you can control how you respond. You can refuse to shrink. You can refuse to blame yourself. You can refuse to let their absence dictate your self-worth. Healing begins when you understand this. Their disappearance is not a judgment of you. It's a symptom of their inner world. When you stop personalizing their vanishing, you reclaim your energy. You reclaim your voice. You reclaim your story. And in that space, something unexpected happens. Freedom. You can still grieve. You can still feel hurt, but you no longer live in their absence. You live fully, authentically, without waiting for an explanation that may never come. Because your life, your emotions, your boundaries, your growth does not depend on anyone else's willingness to show up.